Hi, everybody. I'm Jordan Nostroff with LegalEase Marketing, and this is Exhibit A Attorneys, where we interview attorneys and other experts across the country to talk about what it truly takes to be the Exhibit A of a successful attorney. Today, we get a double whammy, both an attorney and an expert when it comes to these things. Morris Lilienthal. Morris is a top-rated Alabama trial lawyer who's been selected 7 times to Mid-South Super Lawyers list and the National Trial Lawyers Top 100. He's devoted his practice to representing injury victims and their families, and that same competitive nature and drive that helped him excel as a college football player continues to help in his law practice today. He's actively engaged in social media, which I think is putting it a little lightly. Morris, dedicates himself to providing knowledge, value, inspiration to others. Known on social media for his hashtag Tips from Mo, which are daily video tips, and his Facebook Live interview show, The Mo Show Live, hands down one of my favorite Facebook Lives. And you're going to have to help me with this one. It's the WKND shirt. So it's weekend work shirt.
Yeah, we can touch on those, Jordan. Yeah, I've gotten to be known a little bit for those weekend work shirts when I'm up here on the weekends working with my funny, wacky T-shirts and hashtag it out. People get a real kick out of it.
Fantastic. And so when I talked, I know Morris kind of undersold himself from the social media standpoint because he was one of the fellow contributing authors to the book, The Ultimate Guide to Social Media for Business Owners, Professionals, Entrepreneurs by Mitch Jackson, which anybody listening, if you don't know Mitch and you haven't read the book, highly, highly, highly recommend. Mo finds that family and community are an integral part of his life. He's an active member in the Rotary Club of Madison, Alabama, and often volunteers at Madison Elementary School. He and his family are also avid supporters of the March of Dimes, having started a family team, Team Will, in honor of their late son. You can connect with Mo and learn more what he's doing at www.themoshow.live. That's THEMOSHOW.live. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Awesome. I'm excited about the opportunity and I love talking this stuff. I think a lot of lawyers don't appreciate the value in engaging and being actively involved in social media. And a lot of the lawyers that don't understand the right way to do it. And that's my opinion. But I see a lot of lawyers doing that and they appear to be doing it the wrong way. So I look forward to talking to you today about the right way to do it.
All right. So anything you want to add to the intro? And then obviously we're going to talk about the social media mistakes to avoid so you can help grow your firm.
No, I've been practicing this, is hard to believe it, Jordan, 18 years, and but really enjoy practicing law, and it's my privilege to help people in their time of need. But I'm also, more importantly than that, like hopefully everybody else, I'm a dad and I'm a husband, and that's where my heart is, and so. I love my clients and enjoy helping them and fighting for them in and out of the courtroom. But certainly like everybody else, my priorities are my family first, and then everything else falls in afterwards.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to me because I think we'll touch on this. I always find that the better of a job you do with marketing, the more you really turn yourself and your firm into that magnet for clients, the more you can spend time with the family because you're not constantly chasing down new clients to get paid, to cover payroll, to have to waste time with your family, to run in for an emergency consultation and make sure you sign the client up. Have you found that to be the case?
I think so. I think that's certainly true. I think there is a real niche there and a balancing act that if you are actively doing your job and marketing and putting yourself out there, and not just on social, but in a lot of areas, and if you're doing a good job of that, then there's plenty of business out there. And that business should come, and hopefully you're not, scrounging. And certainly if you're starting a firm, if you're a new or young lawyer listening to this, you may have a little bit different mindset. As I said, I've been practicing 18 years and been very fortunate to have a very successful practice and work at a successful law firm that we do a good job with traditional old school network marketing and with the online marketing as well.
Fantastic. All right. So today we're going to be talking about social media mistakes to avoid to grow your firm. After you're done listening or watching this show, if you want to check out our last episode that aired on Monday with Ife Abekwe, who talked to us about how to use Clubhouse and Instagram to grow your firm. So we're keeping in the similar vein on social media here with Morris Lilienthal, my esteemed colleague and our wonderful guest. So I'm going to throw it to you with kind of that opening softball question. Where should we start when we're talking about these mistakes to avoid on social media?
Yeah, I think number one is not being authentic. And I think what I see, one, there's a lot of lawyers that just aren't engaged, but I think that I see the lawyers and law firms that are engaged, Jordan, where I see a big issue is I see lawyers just posting a graphic of, if let's say, for example, let's use what I do for a living, and that is personal injury law, trial law. I see people posting an image of a car crash and call me in a wreck, need a check. And that's just not going to attract people. People are not going to relate to that. You've got to build a connection with people. And so I think being authentic on social media for your firm and you from a personal standpoint is where it starts. And I can give you several examples of that, but I think it starts, and kind of some of this I shared in my chapter in Mitch's book. And that's a lot of what I'm known for. And that is sharing your why, sharing your human side. And I think some lawyers out there get really concerned about opening up and sharing a little behind the scenes. And again, sometimes I may share more about my human side than other people may be comfortable doing. Some may share more about their human side, maybe certainly with politics or things, than maybe I feel comfortable sharing. There's a balancing act with what you're comfortable with. But I think the reason that I've had such success on social media is because I've been able to connect to people on a humanistic level. For example, if you follow me on social, within a few minutes, you're going to know I'm a dad. Every other poster, fifth post or something is about me and my kid is into everything sports. If it's a ball and it rolls or it dribbles, we're going to be playing it at some point within a week, sometimes 3 sports within 2 days. And I'm not trying to be that dad who's, making his kid do everything, but my kid loves it. And so I want to participate in it. And I get here early so I can leave early to be at his practices because that's important to me. But people relate to that. So when I'm sharing, we're at a baseball tournament and we've got the car packed like we're, going to Disney World, people understand that, right? I've shared one of my weekend work shirts to kind of bring it full circle, Jordan, is one of my weekend work shirts is the cell phone battery like we all have at the top of our iPhone or Droid. And it's with one little bar left and it's red. And it's like dad life and it's like a low battery, right? So if you got kids, you get that, right? Just that picture says, I'm a dad, I'm tired, I got a lot going on, but people relate to that, right? And so when I shared that shirt out up here one Saturday morning, I took a selfie and I was like, whatever the comment was, people relate to being a parent. So that's something, for example, that's just in one example. For example, me, I'm a heavy set guy, right? I played sports in high school, played college football. I've always had a problem with my weight, and I'm either really heavy or, medium. I've never been skinny. And, but I share that journey out there to let people know it's okay. And people know that other people struggle with that. And so I hashtag it fat to fit. And so, right now, thankfully, knock on wood, I'm on the down end and more the medium range right now. I'm the lightest I've been in 6 or 7 years. And so I'm sharing out my Peloton journey. And at first I felt like, man, nobody cares about, me being on the Peloton. I can't tell you how many people a week DM me or share or comment on my post. Man, I wasn't going for a run today, but I saw you were up at 5:30 exercising. And that just inspired me to get off my butt and get something in today. I'm talking not one, not two. I'm talking 30 to 50 people over the last 6 months have done that. And so I'm relating to them. Or for one more example is we've got a little miniature Dachshund. He is like the boss of the house. People love pets, right? So I have a routine with my dog that I do every morning. He likes to get up in the big bed before I leave for work, and he gets under the covers and nuzzles up. I can go in and out of that bedroom 10 times and he'll never move. But I'll get a piece of cheese out of the fridge, which is his little treat before I leave, and I put him up for the day. When he hears that ruffle, he instantly comes out of the covers. I videoed that and shared it. It was unbelievable, the feedback that I got in comments. People that love dogs. Oh my God, that's so cute. Blah, 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 blah. But when I'm relating to people, they're getting to know me. They're getting to like me. And so correspondingly, that's why my DMs on all the social media channels are blowing up of people asking me legal questions and reaching out to me because they related to me on a human level first, as a dad, as a dog owner, as somebody who loves sports because we share sports. Or you mentioned, something I'm super passionate about, and that's a parent who's lost a child. You mention and you share that stuff, man, people relate to you. They remember you because if you're sharing the car crash picture which some of that needs to be done. You need to brand yourself and let people know what you do for a living, but that shouldn't be where your focus is. At least that's my position, and it's worked well for me. That's tip number one. Not being authentic. Social media mistakes. Number one, not being authentic.
So the question that I have for people, or the issue that I hear a lot, is people not knowing what is their, I don't want to say uniqueness, but like, what about them should they be sharing? So is there any advice or guidance you have to figure out like what is that non-attorney part of your life that you should be sharing? Or is it really just share, as much as you're comfortable from your normal life?
Well, I think there's a balancing act. I don't think you want to, share every little day in, day out stuff. I have things here at the office that frustrate me, or what I call grind my gears and do that, I'm not sharing that kind of stuff. If you're a nurse, nobody wants to hear certain things. Maybe, that it's, their frustrations at work. I think there's a balancing act. And what I suggest is another social media tip that I'm going to share with you. Let's see what we got. And that would really be the next tip that leads perfect into this, Jordan. And you didn't know these tips before, which is great, is not engaging with others on social media and not posting enough. And those are the next couple of tips. And so what I would say is find something you're passionate about, because I think you need to engage and routinely post. I think as lawyers, I think one of the problems that we have on social media, and with marketing is, where's my ROI? And I want that ROI right now. If I'm turning on a TV commercial, if I'm doing a television campaign, I want to know how many cases I'm getting quickly. Or if I'm doing a PPC, or if I'm trying to, some of your world, to talk SEO for a minute. And if I'm trying to grow an organic presence, it doesn't happen overnight. Well, the same thing happens, same way with social. So you've got to organically build this. I've been doing the Mo Show coming up on 4 years now. And it's just taken a long time. It's a slow burn. And so find something to directly answer your question. Find something that you're passionate about. Something, whether it's, something hikes, I see lawyers that share about, that they love hiking and biking, or maybe you're into scrapbooking. I don't know, whatever it is, find those 3 or 4 things and share it out. And again, some things may be more personal, some things may not be. And so, find out what it is that kind of gets you going. And I promise you, you're not going to be the only one out there that in your circle of social media friends that are into that activity or that medium.
So it sounds like you're mixing, a little bit of the work stuff, the family life, the personal stuff, hobbies and interests. I mean, is there a plan of like, one work post a week, or do you just kind of let it flow more naturally?
I kind of let it flow more naturally. So now we're kind of sort of talking. I'm mixing in here work. My firm's Martin & Beeson, and so I'm mixing in that in. So we do post on social there, and we mix in post about there are some graphics. We posted one this past week about motorcycle accidents. But we also posted one about, I think one day it was Legal Assistance Day or something this week, and we posted about our staff and how we enjoy that. But we'll post stuff about, the local shelter, the local pet shelter or something like that, and promoting them if something's going on, to get out and promote them. About a year ago, we bought dinner for the entire emergency room staff here at the major hospital as a thank you for what they're doing during the pandemic crisis when it was in the height of it. Hey, we took a picture of the hospital and shared that out, and did not about, and we directed the post not as to how great we are, but how thankful we are for what the first responders in our community are doing to assist and get us through this tragedy right now. Again, it's been a year ago when everybody was kind of still freaking out about everything. And it was, you can help too. Here's how you can help. Here are other resources, and here's some information. And by the way, we're appreciative that we could do this. And we got, oh my gosh, you can't believe the engagement that we got thanking us for doing that. But that was not how the post was written. That's not how the graphic was scripted. So we do a lot of that as well. We do contests, giveaways, those kinds of things that are engaging around in the community for our law firm. And then, for example, yesterday, we shared a picture of one of our staff members' dogs. And oh man, everybody's commenting about how cute the dog is. So, we mix it in and out of the firm as well.
So, and then, you were talking about, tip number 2, or I guess mistake number 2, being not engaging enough. And I always look at that kind of twofold. one, you're engaging with other people's posts, and two, you're also engaging with those who engage with your posts. It's always weird to me when somebody will write something on, LinkedIn, they'll get 100 comments on it, and then they don't ever talk to anybody in the comments when those are people that spent time and effort. So are you looking at engagement in that same way?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. So I would say not engaging with others on social and just sharing. And so what I would say is, certainly we started off with number one about, sharing your why, sharing your human side, sharing information out there. But I think what we miss is it's just all about us, and we're just sharing about us, as opposed to I see a post that you share, work related, not work related, and I'm not commenting or resharing if it's something that I think my audience, the people that follow me on social, would be engaging in. Because if I think you need to have that Bob Burger mentality of the go-giver, and it's just providing value and sharing things with and engaging without any expectations for anything in return. And that's hard for a lot of people, especially lawyers, to understand that they're like, well, if I'm going to be doing something on social, I want to be promoting myself, right? It's all about, me, the big bad trial lawyer, or me, the estate planning lawyer, or the criminal defense lawyer. But a lot of people don't care about that because they don't need your services right now. And so if you're engaging with your audience and them and sharing their message, because that's talking about what to share and post, you might find out that some of your friends are involved in the local humane society you're doing. And if you see that, then engage with that, or join other, groups are so popular on Facebook, for example. Join those groups. Or, for example, you mentioned Clubhouse. I'm kind of dabbling in Clubhouse right now. Find groups that you're in interest about, and then jump in and listen and share those groups meetings that are coming up out. And a lot of people, I saw you had shared something about being on a Clubhouse coming up. Share that out if that's something you think your followers would want to do, because if you share that out, people are going to appreciate you, and then they're going to start liking and engaging with your post as well.
Yeah, and along those lines, Stacey Brown Randall, who has a great podcast and is coming on our show, I want to say next month, did a thing for November where it was like 30 days of gratitude leading into Thanksgiving, and nothing was about you. It was leave a great review for a local business owner. It was, share a course that helped you, go through all those things. And it was amazing to me how many cases I got, or how many connections I made or rebuilt from like truly genuinely thanking, 30 people for things that they had done. And then of course I always tell myself I'm going to keep doing it, and then I forget. So I love that concept of, resharing other people's stuff and making sure that you're pushing that forward, because it is interest. Like, you will get a tangible benefit from that stuff when you don't do it expecting the tangible benefit.
100%. And I just, that's who I am at a core. I think that's the right thing to do. It's funny to me, social, what I've told people when I've been asked to speak before on this is, this firm, for example, my law firm was founded in 1937, been around a long time. And the firm grew up, and even when I got here 12, 13 years ago, the firm is really at its core grin and grip. It was networking based upon relationship marketing, just local. Very successful.
I like that.
With it.
Grin and grip. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, that's old handshake.
Yeah.
And it's still built that way, a lot of it. But when I came in, I had fortunate enough to have my partners trust me enough to say, look, you can do what you're doing and continue, but how many times fold can you make those connections? You and I, we didn't meet in Huntsville, Alabama at the street corner. I didn't meet you at the courthouse. We met through social and interacting. I can take the traditional marketing of relationship marketing, one-on-one marketing, or in a small setting like my Rotary Club, and magnify that times 10 or 100 by networking with people all over the country and building relationships with people all over the country. I mean, I had a lawyer in another state recently refer me a wrongful death case. I've never met the gentleman, but he's listened to me speak at other places and follows me on social.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we've been doing, especially over the last year, for like, ultra high net worth estate planning clients. We'll run entire ad campaigns just for referral sources. You target financial advisors, business attorneys, family law attorneys, etc. And it's been so interesting to see the ability to use a little bit of what would be traditional ad spend really to increase the traditional marketing effort of networking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the next one, Jordan, I would say would be, we kind of touched and mentioned on this, but not being consistent about posting. And initially, if you're trying this out in your firm and in your personal post, being worried about how many comments and likes and shares, or if you're sharing video, how many views you get. I think that's a big concern. It's like, well, man, I only got 3 comments on that picture or that post, or I only got 50 views on that video. And I think that's a problem. When I started the Mo Show, it's probably my mom and the mom of my guest that may have been watching or sharing or commenting. And some shows seem to get more traction than others. But I think it's about that mindset, as we said earlier. It's not going to be instantaneous. That it's not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not even really a marathon. It's just never ending. That you have to have that mindset that if this is something you and your firm are going to engage in to try to use social. And there's different ways to use social. What you're talking about from a marketing standpoint, we do a good job, and I think some agencies are really helpful with. If you were trying to use sponsored ads or ads to try to attract a certain type of client, that's one type of way that we use social. And we do a lot of that here. We've done a lot of that with the 3M earplug cases and had a lot of success using social and digital ads to get those clients in the door, thankfully. But what I'm talking about is not really that. That is more engaging with people by post and video and comment and liking and sharing other people's video. But don't be worried about, where you start. And I think the other thing I would tell you, to give you an example, I had probably been doing the Mo Show about a year. And I was back home, which is about 3.5 hours away from where I live now. And the Dollar General, I don't know if everybody has a Dollar General, but they're taking over the world here in Alabama. They're like Walmart, the mini Walmarts. And I was in a Dollar General store, and I ran into somebody I went to school with. I hadn't seen this guy in 25 years. We're friends on social, friends. And he comes up to me and he said, "Mo, what's up, man?" I said, "Hey, man, how are you? Man, it's been forever," kind of thing. He said, "Man, I was watching your Mo Show the other day with the BBB president." Now, this is the BBB president in my town, not where he lives, not even in the same part of the state. And he said, "Man, I'm loving what you're doing. I told my wife the other day, if we ever need a lawyer, we're calling Big Mo." That's what they call me back home. He's never commented. He's never shared. I had no idea he was tuning in. I mean, that just shows you just because they're not commenting, do it. And part of it is TOMA, as you probably know that term, Jordan, and it's top of the mind advertising. If you were consistent about posting, whatever it is you're posting, and I don't mean posting just to be posting, it needs to have some thought in it and some traction to it. But if you were consistent with what you were doing, people see that and they do that. And that's kind of what my recent stuff with some of my Peloton stuff has been. But, the tips from Mo, I get traction with my tips from Mo. One, if they're good tips most of the time, but I get traction because I've been consistent with it for years. I've done hundreds of them, probably 1,000. And, but you've got to have that consistency mindset. It can't be, well, I've done 15 of these things. Where are all the clients at?
No, absolutely. Is there any guidance in terms of talk about consistency of posting? I mean, 3 times a week, once a day, depends upon the platform, depends upon if you have something worthwhile to share.
I think all the above. I think there is I think you need to be posting regularly. For example, for a platform like Twitter, I think you can post multiple times a day. I think that's probably more acceptable on Twitter, personally, and from a law firm type page perspective. Facebook, I'd say 1 to 2 times a day. And if you don't have anything, I may go a day or 2 and don't post them, but I generally post something once a day. Instagram, I usually at least do a story a day. And I may not have a post every day, but every other day at least. And then, and some of those things, some posts are better, or some things, especially maybe from a personal perspective, maybe better built for stories. If you're not familiar, those are little 60-second type captions at the top of Instagram that go away after 24 hours. And the same thing with Facebook and so forth. And fleets. I don't know how many people are looking at fleets on Twitter, but that's out there now. But I would say be consistent and err on the side, at least, of posting more often than less often.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the especially between the Facebook stories, Instagram stories. You can post the same one in both spots. On Instagram, it'll also let you post things to Twitter. It's a little weird with the it basically just posts the text and the comment back. But
one thing I would comment there that I think a lot of people worry about, and that is over posting the same content. Now, again, there are certain things that there's no doubt the things that I might share on Facebook, I don't ever share on LinkedIn because that's not the right audience for that typically. The video or post about my dog, I'm not sharing that on LinkedIn. Sometimes it might be appropriate, but generally not. But the Mosho stuff I cross post. But don't worry about, I shared it on Instagram and I've got a lot of the same followers on Facebook that I'm posting the same video or graphic or whatnot, because the algorithms are different and people may not have seen it on one or seen it on the other. And nobody's going to get upset that if they see a cute picture of your dog on one, that they saw the cute picture of your dog on the other. They're just not.
yeah, no, I've heard, depending upon the platform, like at most 6 to 8% of your following will see a normal post. And then obviously you figure, even if you have the same, 100 people, if 8 of them are going to see it, the odds of it being, this an overlapping 8 between the two makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
Right,
That's why I say doing it.
So consistency, obviously, that's a huge thing. And I love the really like patience as well as consistency. Huge.
Yeah. So the next thing, and this is really big, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't do, and that is not doing a good job of repurposing your content. Make sure you repurpose your content. And what do I mean? Let me give some examples. So, if, for example, your firm does a lot of blogs or you have good content somewhere on your website, repurpose that content. So if you're in estate planning and you've got Q&A stuff that frequently asks questions, turn those into posts. Again, I'm not saying your feed should be all those posts, but periodically, once a week or once every other week or twice a month or however many times you want to schedule those out, use that kind of information because you've already got that content. And so that's when I say repurpose it, put it out there in a different format or share it out in a different way. Another example would be, for example, I do my live video show, the Mosho Live. And you do that. And I don't just let my show live there, right? So I do my show. Then I have the audio ripped from the show and it turns into a podcast. I don't do anything else for the podcast. The podcast is my video show. I have an intro and an outro that was cut. The video or the audio from that is sent to rev.com to get a transcript to use. And then I also turn a 60-second snippet of every Mosho Live into an audiogram, and I use Headliner. We use headliner.app. So I can post promote the interview by taking up, a good little snippet and post that out and then link that to, the podcast, tag my guest in it, send it to my guest for them to share. All that coming from the one show. So I'm able to take that one time of instance of time that I'm doing the show where I'm, I block this hour off to interview Jordan today, but I'm going to get several posts out of that one interview. And so I think be mindful of that, is that when you're doing stuff that you can repurpose that, share it out. For another example, some of the things that we do, when we send email blast, we send a monthly email blast to our clients. We will repurpose content, blogs, videos, Moshos, MMB, we call them MMB Lives. If we've done a Martin and Beeson Live, we'll repurpose that and link that over to our YouTube channel for our guests to see it. But again, like you said earlier, a lot of people probably didn't see that, or majority of people didn't see it the first time it went out.
Well, the beauty of it is with, and then also with Hootsuite, Buffer, Hero Post, whatever you're using, you can take a lot of these clips and then just stagger them out over different platforms over different times. So, if the Mosho goes live the first week of the month, then you get the audiogram the second week of the month, then you can post it on Instagram the third week of the month, then it can be in the newsletter the fourth week of the month. It's amazing to me to see how you can drive things to different locations over time to bring people back to the tentpole content, the show, the newsletter, whatever it is you're trying to get most of the people connected with.
Yeah, and part of that too is it takes some of the burden of you as a law firm owner and a business owner trying to keep pushing content. Well, you don't have to have quite as much if you can repurpose it into snippets like that.
Makes total sense. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of repurposing, and I agree with you. I always like starting with the video because then you can pull audio, you can take out images, you can cut snippets, you get a lot more opportunity from it. Whereas if you start with just a podcast with just audio, you can't really flip it into a video.
We're feeding off of each other. This is like we planned this, and I promise we didn't. So my next tip is not embracing video. Social media mistakes, not embracing video.
Great minds think alike. GMTA.
So what I hear from a lot of people, and let me raise my hand. If you're listening to an audio version of this, I'm raising my hand. I am the first to admit I had to be coaxed and pushed and prodded by Mitch and some other friends of mine when I was trying to really dive headfirst into start doing video. I didn't like the way I looked. I don't like the way I sound sometimes. But I think that's about everybody, unless you're an actor or an actress. And I think that's very normal that I don't like the way I look on camera. I don't like the way I sound, or I can't get through a video without bubbling or stumbling over my words. Folks, people relate to video content. There's just a way that when you eyeball somebody like this, they relate to you and you make a connection with them when you're either doing something like we're doing now, or whether you're doing my tips from Mo, where I turn my phone around like this and I'm doing a 60-second tip, or I'm sharing a live video of my kid at bat, or whatever. People relate to that. So there's a different way of relating to that than just a stagnant post. That's number one. I think where I see people struggle, Jordan, is a lot of people are perfectionists, and I get that. A lot of lawyers are perfectionists. I get that, and there's a time and place for that. If you're writing the appellate brief, it needs to be perfect. But I think with video, this is a tip from Mo. I don't think it needs to be perfect. Now, if you're doing a firm overview video that's going to live on your homepage, yes, it needs to be a lot more polished and gussied up. That's a Southern term. And then I would say the videos that I'm talking about doing. If you are simply trying to shoot Q&A videos that you can have on your YouTube channel that are embedded on various practice area pages on your firm that you can then share out periodically and load into Hootsuite Buffer to share out on your social, or that you can then send to potential clients, hey, I've got a question about this. Well, here's Jordan, here's how you handle your property damage. Let me send you a link to the property damage video where we answer that question. Those videos don't need to be perfect. You don't need a big audio studio and video studio to do it. You can do it just like what I've got right here behind me. In those videos, people want the content. That's it. As long as you've got good lighting and your sound's not messed up like mine is today, but that's just part of it. And you just have to live through it. It's just good lighting, good audio. It doesn't have to be great. Shoot the video, because if you're waiting for it to be perfect, you're never going to get it done. You're just not, or you're not going to get near the volume that you need to get done. So my experience has been, I just rather get it done and get it out. And it's not, some are better than others. But the other thing is, don't worry about bumbling or stumbling. That just shows your human side. Now, if you just totally bungle it, then you need to start over. But if you get 90% of it right and your message is there, people are not going to shortchange you and think that you're not professional or anything. That's my experience. Again, there's a different, if it's the firm overview video and you're doing an interview, yeah, it needs to be a little bit more polished. But if it's these short Q&A videos, or if it's, what you referenced earlier, my tips from Mo, where I'm just kind of giving life hacks or tips or things that motivate me, or, for example, tech tips, things that I found helpful that I've noted that help me in my personal and professional life that I share out. Those don't have to be perfect. I bumble and stumble and I'll finish one. And then 3 seconds later, I'll think, man, I should have said this, but I ain't shooting it again. I got to get it out and get it over. I got other things to do. So embrace video and do that. And then, once you start that in your professional and personal sharing and stuff at your firm and that, I think you'll get more comfortable with it. And then feel free to go live. For example, a lot of firms do such good in their community, and I don't think they share that out in the best way possible. So for example, I'll go out, I'm very passionate as a teacher's husband, about school and public education. And so I go volunteer a lot at the school over the years. Hadn't as much in the last year because of the pandemic. But if I go up there and I've shot a video about me reading to the first grade class and about that they need readers and how much I get out of it, and how fun it is and do. And I'll tag the elementary school. And because the superintendent at the time had been a guest on my show, I'll tag the superintendent of the schools. So of course, they're sharing it out and commenting because I'm out there, touting why they need to have people readers at their school. But think about all the good that you're doing. If you're out on a food drive or handing stuff out, again, it's not the way you handle it is not, hey, look at us, what we're doing. It's more of, hey, here's a need in our community. If you're involved in this, come out and help the local Humane Society. Come out and help with this drive or whatever it is. But don't be scared of live video. I mean, if you can get up in front of a courtroom and argue, you can definitely get up in front of a video and do it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was so interesting when you talked about, like, for that appellate brief, you need to be perfect. Because I think for marketing, we're not writing an appellate brief. We're talking to a jury. I mean, in essence, your juror is your potential client. They're very similar. And I think people love that. It's like watching that movie, and then during the credits, they roll all the funny bloopers, and you end up enjoying the bloopers so much more because you see that human side that nobody's perfect. And also, Breezy, if you can zoom in on me, like, I've got the going for the ZZ Top beard, and I do a ton of live video, and nobody has ever been like, you look like a, misbehaving trucker or biker or whatever along those lines. I think people just relate to us being human. And I think, from the live show perspective, I think it's actually, you want to have moments that don't go perfectly because that's life. That's how it is.
Yeah, funny story. So I was interviewing a guest January, February this year on my show live. Awesome guest. And she is a local television anchor. And I had been interviewed by her 4 or 5 times at the local station talking about the March of Dimes. And how I really made a big impression on her was I sent her a bomb video after she interviewed me one time about 3 years ago. And I said, thank you so much for, supporting the March of Dimes and allowing me to come on and talk about this cause that I'm so passionate about. And she was so impressed that I could send her a video email that she emailed me back. And then she started talking to the meteorologist that works at the station in the mornings and at lunch, and found out that he'd been a guest on my show. And so she says, I want to come to your house and do an interview of you and your family. So she did a couple years ago. So I asked her to be a guest on my show recently. She came on, and she's at home, Jordan, and I'm interviewing her, and she's like just sitting there like you are, but she's in a office or bedroom or something where she's doing it. And all of a sudden her 10-year-old son comes in there to ask her a question, and he didn't have a shirt on, and he's just in his shorts. And it was just a total funny parent mom moment. And he's like, oh, sorry, Mom, I didn't know you were still on that interview. And, he didn't have he wasn't naked or anything. He just didn't have a t-shirt on. And it was so funny, but it was just so natural and just total live video.
Yeah, my favorite moment over the last year, their cat jumped up on the table, and they had like a really nice mic, and the cat just purrs while rubbing against the mic, and it was like Godzilla volume of the purr, and it was just everybody started laughing. It was such a great moment. It bonded all of us together on the panel. Like, it's wonderful.
I think it's fun, and it shows your human side. And for me, kind of further touch on live video. The reason I started a live video show, it allowed me to really engage with an audience that I couldn't engage with otherwise. I could reach out to people in my community who were involved in nonprofits, or people who were doing great things in my community, or influencers in my community that I thought people would want to know more about their story or share their story. And it's hard just to call the local meteorologist up who I've never met. I'm like everybody else at 6 a.m. I just see him on the news and waiting for the forecast for the day and tomorrow. But when I reach out and I say, hey, this is who I am, and I do a live video show. And at that point, I was about 10 episodes in, so I didn't even really have much of a track record. And I just said, hey, I want to talk to people about the dangers of severe weather and what meteorologists do and why your job's so important. Well, man, there's an opening right there. He was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. I mean, fortunately, the station's not far from my office, and this was 3 years ago. It allows me to do that. I've got, other people like that, millions of examples. But the other thing I would share too, Jordan, is so that allows me to connect with their audience. Their audience then some of their audience becomes part of my new audience. I have people that I've had on that support me in everything I do now. I've got multiple people. My wife about 2 years ago said, Hey, I just posted something about Wyatt's my son's name, his little jump rope for a heart thing. And some woman just gave X amount of dollars. She says, I don't know who that is. I said, I know who that is. I said, that's one of my followers on social. I said, she is passionate about XYZ and started following me once I had a show on that. And she comments routinely on my stuff. And then when my wife had tagged me in that post, she wanted to support what we were doing. Never met her, don't know her. But I know if she's got a family member in Alabama or something happens, she's probably reach out to me for that legal need. So, share that out, and you just don't know who's going to be following and what's going on. And, the live video allows me to connect with those people and share that out. And it introduces me to people that I would never have had an opportunity to meet. But the other thing I was going to say is I do dovetail in what I do for a living in certain shows and in certain ways. So for an example, I had on the national president of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Well, if you're a personal injury lawyer, it doesn't get much more straight on than what you're doing than that. But we didn't talk about Mo, the personal injury lawyer. We talked about the dangers of drinking and driving and what their organization is doing. But my knowledge and my skill set certainly allowed me to be really engaged in what we're talking. And then naturally, I was able to bring up a couple of examples from cases that I've handled as to why that was an issue.
Yeah, so, but I love the fact that you're intentionally putting the work second, which I think really helps people engage with the show. Like if the show was just Mo the lawyer talks about being a lawyer, you're not going to get the same amount of traction. But because it's about the community, you have people that really connect with it, and then you can share a little bit of it for people to know what you do and who you are. But I just think you made such a smart decision to not make it about that.
Nobody wants to hear me talk about contributory negligence or how uninsured motorist loss stacks in Alabama. Nobody. Unless you're my client, and then you don't even want to care about it unless it helps you. So it's definitely intentional about trying to help people and share causes and get involved, and then naturally weave in what I do for a living as it naturally fits.
Makes perfect sense. All right, so next one is mistake number 5.
I think we're on 6. Are we on 6 or 5? I think we're on 6. So this one you may not like specifically, but I'm gonna explain why.
Let's do it.
Okay. So outsourcing your social media. I don't think you can fully outsource it. The lawyers that I have seen be successful at this do it themselves or in conjunction with a good digital marketing company. And I think for me, I have to do it in conjunction because I can't outsource the Mo Show. I just can't. That's who I am. It's what I do. My guests are my thoughts. I get input from other people. I have my law partner. I have my marketing agency has provided suggestions, but I don't think that's something you can outsource. I think you have to have your hand in the cookie jar if you're going to be involved and do a good job of social, because a lot of times your social media company is not in your community. So they don't know what's going on in your community for you to be able to say, hey, right across the street and starting in May, every Thursday from Thursday to the end of August is the Green Street Market in Huntsville. And it's a great thing where local vendors and local farmers market people come and do. Why don't you sponsor that, or why don't we help with that? My SEO company wouldn't know anything about that. They're not here. But when I tell them that this is an idea that I have, then their wheels start turning. They're like, okay, how can we leverage this? How can we do a graphic or a post or a promoted post? Or the things we talked about. Yes, we leverage our marketing company all the time to do things like paid ads on social or how to best promote stuff or repurposing content, right? So for example, to pull the curtain back a little bit, and this kind of helps some people who are, the same mindset that I have when I see Mitch Jackson or when I've seen what Mitch does or other lawyers do. And I'm like, there's just no way I can. When do they have time to practice law? When do they have time to do anything? How are they doing all of this? So I think a lot of that is bringing in your marketing company, or for not only that year or so, I've hired a virtual assistant. And so that has allowed me to outsource a lot of the repurposing part of it. And to be frank, when I started the Mo Show, I just started the show. I didn't repurpose anything. I had to get the show going and get it grinding first. And then it started with a YouTube channel. And then it went to a podcast. And then it went to audiograms. So I just kind of built on it. But so, for example, my virtual assistant, she's fantastic. She will take the show. I'll email the guests, confirm that. And once I do that, she goes into StreamYard, sets up everything in StreamYard. I don't have to do any of that. She creates the graphic and the blog post to pre-promote the show. She shares that out. I don't do that. I approve the content. And then once we get that lined up, I'll do the show. And then after I do the show, then the post promotion that we talked about earlier starts, that she does. She sends the video and the audio from the video to Rev. She then uploads it and tags it to YouTube. She then, once we get the audio back, creates the podcast. She then will send me several examples or possible audiograms from Headline or APP. But I don't have time to do all that. So that's a way I can leverage, an agency or a VA or both to help me. But I still think you as a law firm need to have your hands involved, because where I see like some of my competitors and some of my friends, they'll outsource it. And it's these terrible graphics that I'm telling you about, Interact need to check graphics. And it just looks so fake and just not realistic and not humanistic. And I think you need to be involved in it in some aspect.
You will not hear me complaining about that. I actually think it's funny because I think it was Larry Weinstein who talked about, like, you can have it done for you, you can do it yourself, have it done for you, or have it done with you. And I always look at, so really any marketing for at least the first 3 to 6 months should be done with you in some manner. Social media, obviously, I'm right there with you, because you are so correct on the benefits of really having that awareness of the community that you're not going to be able to outsource. Totally agree.
Yeah, and Larry does a great job, by the way. He's a friend, and going back to what I talked about earlier, he's somebody I would have never met but for social, in meeting and being in some of the mastermind groups that I've been in, and then attending some conferences. He's a CPA, for goodness sake.
A CPA for lawyers.
Well, of course, yeah, I know. And he does a great job with his marketing follow-up. I was on his podcast a while back and got this nice little box of tea and, Yeti mug and all these nice little, perks for being on the CPA for Lawyers podcast. But he does a great job. And there are so many people out there, guys. If you're looking to break into this space to do it, there are a lot of people that you can, emulate. And what I would say is, it needs to be you and your branding and your personality, but don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, if you see things that are working, don't worry about kind of emulating or copying that, and putting your own personal spin on it. But I'm not trying to, break and do something nobody else has done. I mean, there are a lot of lawyers around the country doing it. What's interesting though is nobody in my community is doing it for the most part. My buddy Bernard Domberg does a live show and does a great job with social down in Birmingham. But he and I are really the only ones around in Alabama doing anything like this. So lawyers are really surprised when they see and do, and I have lawyers reaching out to me about, how are you doing this? Are you getting anything out of it, kind of thing? And, how hard is it? And I can assure you what I'm doing, as evidenced by the fact I can't figure out how to control the mic gain on this Blue Yeti today. I'm not that most tech savvy person. I know enough just to be dangerous to get me by. And that's really all you need to know. And then you can outsource the rest.
Yeah, I mean, even if there were 10 people in Alabama doing the similar stuff, you would still have access to, hundreds of thousands of people each. You've got 1.3 million attorneys across the country. How many have their own firm? Smaller number. How many have their own podcast? Smaller number. Or Facebook live show? Even smaller number. Let alone in your state, let alone in your city, let alone in your county. It's amazing to me. There's always going to be a niche as long as you genuinely try to make it valuable, genuinely care, genuinely share, authentically awesome stories.
100%. And there's just too much content out there that you can share and do that I think you'd be surprised when you share it out. People will be interested by it and do and engage and want to engage with you. And people want to support you, and they want to support the causes that you support. And, just sharing out things about life and doing, whether it's, being a dad or, work stuff. I share out stuff here that frustrates me and grinds my gears. And I think about it in a little different spin. How can I present something that is difficult to do, and certainly not sharing anything that's private or confidential, but sharing things out that go on the legal process or things that frustrate me. And I've got something that's been in my ear since last week. I took a bunch of depositions last week, and I'm thinking, this is wrong. I need to talk about this somehow in a tip or something. And I've got an idea, and I'm going to do that probably tomorrow. And it's just one of these things that share it out, and people are going to engage with it, I think, because you're not going to be the only one that, for example, grinds your gears when people are late. It just grinds. I mean, and, there's people who are late people, but I can't stand it. And my kid knows it, right? I mean, he's like, Dad, look, we're not going to be at baseball on time. I said, buddy, we're going to be there. He's like, but Dad, if we're not early, we're late. I said, you got it. That's it, man. That's it. And that was ingrained in me by my high school football coach. And the way he said it's probably not a way I can say on video, but he said, you better get your butt out there and be ready to practice at a certain time. And that stuck with me. And so, but those are things that I share out and do. And, I'll get pushback. I'll get pushback from people who are the late people, and they love it and do. And we have a fun exchange with it and do. But don't be afraid to get out there and push it and share and engage and be consistent with it. And I promise you, if you'll do this and not say for a month, but for 6 months or a year, give yourself a long-term time frame, you're going to find some traction with it.
Yeah, along those lines, it was like a, dad humor or something like that, where it goes, my coach made me run laps the other day because I was late to football practice. My dad's the coach, and he's the one who drove me there. And that stuck with me so much. I thought it was so funny. All right, so we're getting towards the end here. So for everybody watching this, listening to it, on Monday, we have Stephanie Everett of Lawyerist on. Stephanie is going to be talking to us about 4 easy ways to build a healthier firm. So I am very curious to see building a healthier firm. I didn't know that there were any easy ways, but Stephanie's going to share 4 of them with us. And I don't know that there may not be anybody better suited to tell that story than somebody involved with Lawyerist. All right. So I am going to dive into your brain for one more golden nugget of wisdom. So if somebody's been listening to this for the last 50 something minutes and they take nothing away from this except this one thing, what is the biggest piece of advice you have to help people become the Exhibit A of a successful attorney?
Sharing your human side. And that's it. And in whatever the most comfortable way. If you're not comfortable, if you just say, I can't be a video person, that's okay. And you're not comfortable with a live video show, or you don't have time. But share who you are in who you are at a core level, at whatever it is, the 3 to 4 things that you're super passionate about. Share that out. And I promise you, if you'll give yourself the freedom to do that, you're going to find out that there's a whole segment of people out there that you don't really know well or engage with beforehand that are going to engage with you on social media because they're passionate about the same things.
Yeah. And it's always amazing to me, like, I've got a former client who is a big Bills fan, and I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm from South Florida. That's the curse that I was given. Although we got your, I really hope your former quarterback has a better second year with us. But somehow this client and I, on day one, we're talking about football and going through the whole thing. And then obviously, the week 16 last NFL season, he sent me 5 emails just blasting, you guys are trash. I can't believe this. We're going to hit 100, benching everybody. But it was just such a funny, genuine human moment that we both realized, at the end of the day, it's football, it's a sport, it's for fun. And so we just had done quite a good job bonding over it over the last couple of years. So even if you are even if you don't agree on the topic that you are passionate about, you can still build some really good connections with people.
100%. And that happens all the time, but you're never going to build that bond if you don't share it out to start with.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Exhibit A Attorneys. If you're interested in becoming the Exhibit A of a successful attorney, please check us out at LegalEaseMarketing.com, EASE.